Okay, can everyone see the screen okay now? All looking good. Excellent. Okay, yeah, no, it still hasn't uploaded, so I'm going to have to work with what we've got here. So, asset protection, basically, what would be a good way to start is just to ask everyone the same question. Name in the text chat how you feel about where Australia is at the moment. In other words, obviously you came to this webinar for a reason. Just where do you feel in terms of things at the moment? Just in your own words, 1, 2 words, 3 words, or whatever. Scary, certainly in the train, waiting on my visa to Dubai, unwell and sinking, uncertain. Yes, with good reason, dangerous. Okay, so it seems that everyone's nervous is sinking. Yesterday on our VIP client webinar, I heard someone say something that I thought was a really good one, and it basically was concerned, and I thought that was a good word. Panicked, fear, there's no point living in that vibration. However, concern, when you can see there's a problem, is a good thing because concern can mean you can take action. And concern means that you take steps and do things. And this is why I started with this slide, but it's my favorite. Plan for what is difficult while it's easy. Do what is great while it's small. And the reason that we're doing this 5-part series, it came about with my fellow partner in crime, Mr. Trent Chapman, who's here tonight, and you'll be briefly seeing him at the end, who has joined forces more with me on Global Wealth Club to help awaken people and help you get your plan B sorted. So very grateful to Trent. It's a big reason I've been able to do this, knowing I've got someone backing me with this. The fact is right now, Australia is definitely in a challenging place. As I see it right now, this is the time to be taking action while you still can and making sure you're really nicely and well structured. So this 5-part series is going to guide you towards an outcome to help you get yourself set up to make sure you're basically not getting plundered by governments, corporations, and other shitty people who do shitty things to people, okay? Just type a Y if you're with me, and if you're like, yeah, baby, I'm not going to be plundered and violated, because that's kind of what's happening here. And when it happens for so long, we get used to it, don't we? We get used to it. We see stupid laws and we numb to it. When really we are seeing some pretty darn crazy stuff, even a bit scary. We're seeing digital social media coming out that is giving potential for all kinds of things. We're seeing laws being passed right now for hate speech and stuff like that, for simply saying something or posting a video you shouldn't. So potentially we've got some challenging times ahead. And I'm not saying to go and do anything crazy. I'm saying to plan for what is difficult while it's easy. And if you start taking steps today and after this webinar, you have a really good chance of coming out of this not only okay, but coming out of this in a great position. Because when things happen, like cost of living go up and governments do stuff like this, you lose the middle class. You lose that middle group and you end up going one of two ways. Either you're pretty much in the system on a great reset, in Trent Chapman's word, you either end up in a great reset, universal basic income, or great awakening, more prosperous than ever. Who's going to be with me and go down the great prosperity, great awakening path? Just type a Y, raise your hand if that's what you want to do. You want to go great awakening path. And that's going to take action. I mean, a great awakening doesn't mean sitting there waiting for Jesus to appear in the sky and smile at you. I mean, that'd be nice if it happened. I'm just not so sure it's going to happen just yet. It doesn't mean that suddenly, miraculously, Santa Claus will come down the chimney and give you a whole lot of money and solve your problems. It means taking difficult action now while you can. So this is so today we're starting the process. And in the 5-part series, today is a more general overview, and we're going to break it down and be more specific over the coming week. So if you're here today, it is strongly suggested that provided you get value from this webinar today, but you come to the remaining weeks, because we're going to be looking specifically at the kind of structures you can set up in Australia, company and trust. We'll be looking as well as at things like a bit more details about super funds. We'll be looking at cryptocurrencies and things like that. We'll be looking at offshore and the digital nomad path and how to set up and have a plan B nest egg offshore. So you won't wake up one day and if Australia goes completely off the charts, you'll at least have a nest egg offshore. And then finally, how to sleep at night, secure your wealth and move forward. Okay, So that's the basic idea of what we're planning to do for you today. So let's get started anyway and start to go into more depth on this. So obviously, like anything, we are giving you educational information. That's all we're giving you today. So we're not really giving you basically professional advice. Don't run away, do a whole lot of structuring right now today. Get some advice. Make sure you're getting guided. So that's our important disclaimer. Now, like I said, this was meant to have been edited. That's why it's here twice, because I just could not, the PowerPoint has not been editing up the changed version. So please excuse a few glitches in the matrix today and just put it down to the full moon. So do a digital detox and put away your phone and your social media. Be fully present, engaged. Trent and I are going to keep this to 60 minutes today, which means we've got 50 odd minutes left. And save personal scenarios for private consults as much as possible today. Obviously, you can ask questions at the end, but as much as possible, really tune in. So I'm really going to keep it simple. Today, this is two topics: asset protection intro, tax minimisation intro, that will be broken up a little bit more over the coming weeks. So let's just get started with asset protection. So what about the importance that when you've got wealth of knowing how to keep it? One of the things I used to say in webinars and masterclasses before is that look to the others to help you make money. I'm the one who helps you keep the money that you make. So you don't give anything back to the greedy, gold-digging predators who want to steal your hard-earned wealth from you. And unfortunately, that is the truthful scenario more than it's ever been before, that we have this happening. So what does this look like and how does this go? So what are the biggest threats to your wealth right now? So I want you just to consider your situation and really where you're at. My question to you is this, and I want you to all think about this right now. If you, let's just say you walk to your mailbox and in that mailbox is a letter with an official looking letterhead. You have a little bit about, ooh, something about this, a bit of an oh shit moment. You open the letter and what you see is a letter from a government agency, and the moment you read it, you know all your hard-earned wealth is at threat and you could lose everything you've ever worked for. Who here would freak out on a major wholesale level if that happened? Just type a Y, raise your hand or whatever. Who would go, oh my holy mother of God? My guess is most of you. Is there anyone who doesn't care and would happily give up all your money to the government today? Just say me. If you would happily give all your money to the government because you don't give a shit. Doesn't seem like anyone falls in that category at this stage. So here is my next question for you to ponder when we go into that. So how many of you own a car on this webinar today? How many of you own a car? Just type a me if you do, or raise your hand. Most of you. Type in, just say no in this chat if you own a car but have no insurance. Type the word no. I want to see if there's anyone who's done that. If you genuinely no, okay, you generally get one. You usually get one. So you've chosen to self-insure. So in other words, a couple of people have decided that if you crash your car, that you will bear the risk of that happening, okay? So just out of interest, for the two who said no, how much is your car worth? Let's have a look. Just type in the chat. I'd be curious if you're willing to share that. 5,000? Yep. There's one of them. The other one's probably something similar. In other words, when it's a low 20,000, oh, you're probably the bravest person I've ever had. Generally, it's between 2,000 and 5,000 when people don't insure their car. So 20,000, that's probably the bravest I've seen. You've chosen to take the risk that if you write your car off, you're going to pay the full 20K, okay? Most of you here have got car insurance, not because you expect to crash your car, but because if you do crash your car, you want to be sure you're covered, okay? Who here has got health insurance? Just type in me if you've got health insurance. Many of you, okay. Type the word definitely if you really hope you get sick so you can claim on your health insurance. If you hope like heck you can get sick, so write definitely. If you really genuinely want to get sick or smash the heck out of your car to get something on your car insurance. The answer is nobody. And the reason why is what you hope every time you spend your car insurance premium and your health is that it's a waste of money. In other words, you hope that that money is the biggest waste of money you've had, okay? So in other words, that nothing comes out of it. Now, let me ask another question. Who here knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that if the government went crazy or someone sued you today, but all your wealth is safe and you're 100% fine? Just type out, yep, in the text chat if you know you're fine. Like 100%, no issue. You're well protected. You're well insured. Your wealth is insured. A couple of people, good. There's a couple. Tony, I should hope so. You've been coming to my webinars long enough. Tony's an old friend of mine, by the way, so I'm always going to give him I'm going to abuse him on webinars because he abuses me. But most of you here haven't. How crazy is that, though? Just ponder it. But you've got your car insured because you don't want to crash it. You got your health insured, but you haven't insured your whole net worth, and you know it would freak you out. Maybe it's just because you didn't realize it until I put it this way. Who just simply hasn't done it because they never saw it that way until now? Just type a Y or raise your hand. If now I put it in a way you've gone, yikes, I didn't see it that way before. Couple of people, few, yep, okay, great. Reason I'm stressing this is that asset protection is about really investing to secure your wealth and set up your plan B, not because you hope you use it, but know that you've got it there if you absolutely need it. Because right now we have many, many threats now to wealth like we've never had before. There's a high Australian tax rate, government's taking it from there. Litigations like never before for unhappy employees, tenants, business partners. And this is more common than you can realise. Divorce proceedings can wipe out wealth like you wouldn't believe. In fact, I always say the hardest thing to protect against is a brutal family court. Illness or disability that prevents you from working can suddenly halt your income generation. Government overreach. COVID showed how overnight your wealth could suddenly be restricted and people were caught vulnerable because governments decided to overreach. And of course, right now in Australia, we're facing a legislative change risk. Introduction of inheritance tax, removal of negative gearing, superannuation, death taxes, and all other kinds of atrocities being alluded to by governments that could affect your wealth like never before. And all of this kind of stuff is pending. And as we all know, but freedom, security is very big in our value. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basically having a security and having some stability is very important. Just type a Y if having your wealth secure is very important in your value system. You do want to make sure you're set up for your future. Yeah, most of you, absolutely, which is good. That's no doubt why you're here. I just want to emphasize this, the importance of taking action. So what are the kind of things that you protect against? I've already said it, but I'm saying it in another form. Banks is one, for example. Banks can pursue your wealth. There can be little things you can do, like how you protect your assets from banks. The biggest one, I think, is the biggest threat right now is governments and the ATO. I think that is a really genuine threat right now. The ATO have just been given $1 billion to target people to increase compliance, and are they using it? They're targeting everything from trusts to foundations to all kinds of different things. They're openly saying on their website they're targeting more and more groups, and if you fall in a certain net wealth, you will be targeted. They're saying that now. They're not even hiding it. And the sobering thing is, in the book The Sovereign Individual, Rees, Moggs and Davidson said that when that happens, they said when that actually happens, that means your civilization is getting pretty close to collapse once governments start basically just taking your money and without even showing any attempts whatsoever to stay within the law or do things in the right way. They throw caution to the wind. And what we've got to realize now is the changes in society that's happening like never before. And the big one is what I call the demographic changes that we're now seeing. And these are really changing everything. So when you're getting demographic changes happening, this is kind of the new way of doing it. And I want to show you a couple of slides I did in a VIP presentation last night that I think shows you something that's very important for you to understand. And those of you who were here last night, You just get to see it again. So this is what's going on right now, okay? The big shift that we're seeing, but driving now government decisions, which is the generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs, these kind of people. And all kinds of statistical studies, which I don't have time to go into today, are showing that they're driving things now. Generally, people under 35 are now really driving most of the government decisions. And I can assure you, these people want your wealth. If you're 50 or above, or even 45 or whatever, they want your wealth, because in their mind, you had a chance to get ahead. They don't have the chance to get ahead. 30 years ago, you could buy a property on a really shitty income, and I know that because I did that myself with Grace. Nowadays, even with a really damn good income, there's a good chance that you can't, and that really upsets people. That their cost of living is much higher. The ability to live is insane. I don't even want to waste too much time, because I think all of you would agree with me. The main thing to realize is that once you get a significant portion of the voters in a democratic society wanting a certain outcome, you will see that. This is why I predicted, when everybody else was saying I was a conspiracy Fruit Loop early in COVID, that they were going to basically coerce people into vaccines, mask people up, and restrict travel. And I said, it's because that middle majority group are in favour of what they're doing. In other words, the majority now of the population want these COVID restrictions in Australia. And all statistics show the majority now of Australians are wanting something done about this cost of living. And even though we all know that the real culprit is the government and the banks, they see you as the culprit, okay? And they want some of your wealth. You've got to remember too that the Albanese government right now, you've even got Trump virtually saying, I don't want to talk to this guy because he's just taking away his citizens' rights whatsoever. You've also got to realise that Albanese won't be accountable again until 2028. So he's got about a good 18 months to 2 years to have a bit of fun. And so, like I said, I hope that everything I'm saying today is a crock of nonsense. It's like, I hope today I don't crash my car. I hope today that I don't get sick and end up needing to use my health insurance. But I think, if anything, I think there's a greater risk of what I'm saying on this webinar today happening than there is of me crashing my car or having a major health risk. And I think most of you would agree with that. This is the kind of sentiment that's been coming out. Tax their wealth, tax their property, tax their super. I'm actually hearing this, by the way, from young people. I'm hearing it from friends of my kids and my sons. I'm hearing it from like my nephews and people like that. I'm hearing it from a raft of people, because they're seeing it basically as a necessary rebalancing, especially in Australia. And we must remember that Australia likes to do things in extremes. We've proven that. During COVID, we prided ourselves on being lunatics. And rest assured that right now we're the laughing stock of the world because of digital media, social media, which by and large is going to be giving an incredible opportunity to charge and harass and fine people more. So again, you may be okay with that. I would be suggesting that you at the very least want to be taking action right now, so you can still enjoy living in Australia, but know that if you really need to, and you're sitting there in horror thinking, I can't live here anymore, you can take the decision and move without starting again afresh with nothing, which is what can happen if a society collapses. So, and right now, I believe you've got time, but not an awful lot. So what are the strategic pillars of asset protection which should be obeyed and observed? So in terms of who am I am a qualified lawyer, qualified accountant, qualified financial planner, honours basically in law, won the prize at Mallison Stevens Jacks, 10 years at the ATO, over 20 years doing this kind of stuff. In other words, I'm a first-class nerd of the highest order, who doesn't really have much of a life. I do, but you know what I'm saying. In other words, I've been doing this a long time, and basically this is from my years of experience as a lawyer and doing things like that. So strategy number one is structuring, and we're going to be teaching more about that over the coming weeks. I'm not going to be giving a lot of teaching on structures today. That will be the coming weeks. Next week, in fact, we'll be starting on that series. So setting up companies, trusts, and things like that. Putting a structure at least puts a gap between you and your wealth, and at least that gives you some protection. You're better to do something like that than you are to do absolutely nothing at all, okay? That's basically the thing. So setting up companies, trust, or some kind of structure to ensure that your hard-earned wealth is at least a little bit harder to get to than in your own name. And I can assure you that once you've got money sitting in a structure rather than your own name, you are in a much better position to basically do something about it. In other words, it's harder to get your wealth. And this is me speaking Warren Black, the former lawyer, knowing kind of stuff like that. So this is the good thing for you to know that that's possible and to know that there is things that you can actually do. So structuring is number one. Rule number two is to control and not own, okay? And this again comes down to structures. You basically want to control your wealth, but not own it. You want to be a penniless bum. You want to be broke. You want to be the person that anyone looking at Was a Black goes, God, this guy's broke. Or Trent Chapman going, man, Trent Chapman, I feel sorry for the guy. He doesn't own anything. He's broke. And you look at our friend Mr. Gates and his wonderful humanitarian work for our health, and George Soros and dudes like that. None of them own anything, but you can rest assured they're not exactly broke in real life. So the secret to life is to control my own. And I notice the difference between someone very wealthy and someone who's not is they get this. Someone who's not that wealthy wants to hold on and kind of doesn't like the idea of not owning and feeling secure. The truly wealthy know that life on earth is only a short experience anyway. And the only thing you know for sure, at some stage in your life, you're going to have to give all your money back anyway. So controlling it through trust foundations is how they do it. So the wealthy families have used this for generations and things like that. Tax efficiencies, ownership is vanity. So yeah, like basically this is a millionaire who I actually worked with many, many years ago. And basically strategic structuring, he just simply he owned a lot of things, but absolutely owned nothing. And he was actually faced with litigation threats. And he thanked me a long time later. Said, I'm so grateful for what you told me. You saved my livelihood when I got targeted, because people will not necessarily target you because you've done anything wrong. They just target you because you got money. This happened to me. 20 odd years ago, I had someone sue me and they actually admitted to me. They said, we're really sorry. We know you did everything right, but they said, we've tried to sue our family lawyer and we're out of time. Well, we're not out of time with you. We're hoping your insurance will give us something because my daughter's sick. This is what the woman told me. So literally that's what actually happened. So people sue for many reasons. Who's like blown away by that? Just out of curiosity. It actually did happen to me in real life. I was actually told that sitting in a mediation hearing in court. Just type a Y, raise your hand, or everyone thinks that's normal behaviour. Yeah, Tony. Yep, well, I'm glad someone's talking to me. You're no surprise anymore. Yep, so people, especially in the socialist world, people want your wealth. People want to get your stuff. They'd rather take yours than work for it themselves. Remember, the Facebook ads tell them that, hey, you can be sitting on a laptop, living a lifestyle, doing jack shit and get your money. Eventually, these people will end up, by the way, with a universal basic income and a great reset. But for now, they'll do whatever they can to get your money. So the third strategy is offshore. We'll be covering that in the third week. We'll be looking at why you want to be having an offshore strategy in your structuring, and why that's not necessarily just for the super rich. I mean, imagine if, for example, through AI or social credits, you can't access your money anymore in Australia. I think you'd be very glad if you got money sitting offshore. I'm meeting digital nomads now and influencers of people you would have heard of when I go traveling worldwide, and all of them are saying the same thing. They said, we love Australia and we love where we live, but we really realize, but we've moved a lot of our wealth and structuring offshore because we recognize that, like it was in COVID, we're now at serious risk and we can't ignore it. And we will still believe things will turn around in time, but for now, we've got to accept the realities of the situation and where things are at. So, and the problem is there's no easy solution when a country has blown out of control and cost of living, other than some kind of detox or reset. There's no other way around it. And so that's going to happen at some level. You just want to make sure you're ready and you get through it. This is for property owners. There's ways you can protect your property from people suing you. So if governments or others want to take after you, you can set up your own private mortgage system. And that doesn't mean you borrow from a bank. I want to emphasize that, because people are like, oh, does that mean I have to borrow? No. It just means you create your own mortgage over your property to make sure it becomes a heck of a lot harder for any bugger to go and take your property wealth off you. So To give you a bit of an idea how that actually works, I'm actually going to get up a quick brochure and show you what I mean. So just opening up this is an example here. So you've got a second mortgage here, you create some trusts over here, and they basically lend back and take a mortgage over the house. So in other words, rather than you owning, let's say you have a house worth $1 million and you've only got a 100K mortgage, if someone sues you, there's 900K equity. Imagine this through your own trust or structure, you can create a mortgage over your house. So suddenly you've got the XYZ trust having a mortgage as well as the bank. Suddenly your property becomes a whole lot less better. This is way better than transferring your property into a trust and paying lots of capital gains, stamp duty, and land tax. So this is a really good little structure that lawyers have been using for years to do that. That's a fourth one. And the fifth and most important one is just to be informed and know how to do things like that and do policy matters and policy shifts and know how everything's happening. One of my simple rules of saying it is just to simply make sure there's an entity between you and your assets. So rather than everything being your name, you got like a structure, owns your business, you might have another structure, owns your cryptos, your cash, and things like that. And then you got things in your own name. So it's really important that you do that and make sure you keep trust and control of your wealth. So in fact, I'll show you a bit of a nice diagram, another one, seeing as we're doing some little diagrams or whatever else. So let's have a look. But as an example, you could have a trust all come over here, and we'll go through this in the company trust in more depth. You have one for your business and one for your investment. Why would you do that? Let's say that was running Global Wealth Club here, over here with Grace, and somebody sues Global Wealth Club. If I've got all my cryptos or my shares and shit like that sitting in my business, can you all see that now all that's at risk? Whereas if sitting over here separately, I'm going to be fine. Equally, if it's all in my own name, there's always a risk they could actually sue me personally as well as through my business. And if I breach my common law duties, then I could be personally liable. Having stuff over here will save my bacon, and many clients will thank me this day for saving their bacon, so to speak. So you want to keep a distance between you and your wealth. And that's why we'll be sharing more on companies and trusts and how courts and statutes give that kind of protection. They help you be protected, they help you be separate, they help you have robust operations, limited downside risk, and it's easier for you to transfer wealth and things like that down the track. So this is how the wealthy basically operate, so to speak. And we've also got foundations, and that's by the way a bit more sophisticated. So if you haven't even got a company in trust, forget about a foundation. That's just going to confuse you and kind of blow your brain out, so to speak, energetically. So the foundation, if you've already got companies in trust, this is another way to protect your wealth and legally minimize taxes in Australia by getting this kind of stuff done. But again, I emphasize just go one thing at a time. So now let's have a look at the second thing that I was going to cover today in the 60-minute presentation. A little bit about tax minimization and how to keep your wealth basically safe. So these are the kind of things that we teach in tax minimization generally, and I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of this. This is normally a 2 or 3 hour presentation on its own. Today, I'm just going to give you an overview on how to do this and give you the simple stuff, keeping in mind I'll be sharing more over the coming next few weeks on this particular topic, so to speak. So these are some famous quotes that are very worth watching. So Lord Dunedin established a fundamental principle that everyone is entitled to legally minimise their taxes, so to speak. So no matter who you are, you can minimise it. So Kerry Packer, of course, one of my favourite guys, has had one of the greatest speeches whatsoever on this one. So he basically said pretty much about the whole speech about not giving any unwanted donations, so to speak. So I'm actually going to show you this video because it's such a good video, so to speak. So just give me 1 sec. I'm going to have to stop sharing the screen for a quick second, and I will reshare it again.
What the Four Corners program suggested was not that you were evading tax at all, that would have been libellous, but that you were minimising tax.
There's nothing wrong with minimising tax. I don't know anybody who doesn't minimise their tax.
And that you were doing so in ways that were contrary to the spirit of the law.
Oh. Well, I just got through telling you what I thought about that, and what you're saying is exactly what the Four Corners program says. I am not evading tax in any way, shape or form. Now, of course I am minimising my tax, and if anybody in this country doesn't minimise their tax, they want their heads ripped, because as a government, I can tell you, you're not spending it that well that we should be donating extra.
And there you have it, everyone. Who thinks it's a pretty cool quote? I love that. It's one of my... I love the confidence that the guy said it as well. I always tell people, you want to learn how to deal with governments, watch this dude. Whenever I think I'm doing well, I just watch him and guys like Trump, and I realise I've got a long way to go. Packer, it's also, I can tell you now, what you won't see publicly, it's well known that when Packer was audited, one time he had 3 tax officers surrounding him in a room deliberately to intimidate him. One guy was particularly being quite aggressive towards him. And after about 20 minutes of it, Packer stood up and he said, young man, words to this effect, he said basically, you know, what words to the effect was, I was already running a business, making money by the time you were born, and you're young enough to be my son. He goes, I'm not going to sit here and watch an unelected bureaucrat basically patronising me and talking to me, who's a public servant, who's funded by people like me. He said, I'll happily submit to your rules and be here to cooperate, but I expect more courteous treatment while I'm leaving this room right now with my lawyer. And apparently, the guy went very red and apologised. So that's what you call power. That's what you call confidence. So you want to have no fear, no apology. One of my favourite tax minimisation people is Lady Godiva. So for those of you who are women thinking, well, all I hear about is the men, to try and get her husband, she rode naked through Coventry to protect oppressive taxation by her husband. Which of you women would ride naked to cut taxes? Anyone? Anyone brave enough to do that? Because that's what Lady Godiva did. Not getting any volunteers so far, but that's literally, these are the kind of people in history. You have the Peasants' Revolt rebelling against poll taxes. Who would like to see me ride naked to cut taxes? Or who would, me probably threatening to do that would probably cut taxes because everybody would want me not to do it. So anyone want to see me ride naked to cut taxes? Not getting many volunteers again. Indeed, Tony would, yeah, but you're a sicko, Tony. Yeah, Tony, Janine. There's a few people, but I think the bulk of you would probably pay me not to. The Peasants' Revolt, the Boston Tea Party, the US Revolution started with a tax revolt. That's how it started. The Peasants' Revolt started basically because of that reason. So eventually when taxes become a theft of wealth, this is the kind of stuff that starts happening. So basically, we have many taxes which cripple businesses and individuals. Australia has an unusually high burden, and I think we would all agree to that, and enough said. So it's crazy how much taxes that we are paying in Australia, so to speak. In fact, according to some studies, the average Australian, by the time you add every tax of every kind, 69% of your money ends up going to the government in some form. Who here would believe that, by the way? When you add everything up, 69% of your money goes to the government at some level. So that's pretty yucky. And according to Bastiat, that's straight out stealing. That's not actually taxation. That's stealing. In fact, what's interesting is if you read the Holy Bible, it never talks about taxes as anything other than tribute and a sign of slavery. They don't call it taxes, they call it tribute. And it means that basically it's a form of ownership. It's a form of acknowledging your Lord. So generally in the Bible stories, whenever they were sovereign, they didn't pay taxes, they tithed. When they were basically controlled and they were owned as slaves, they paid tribute. And generally the whole book of Judges in the Holy Bible is an account of various rebellions against tributes by oppressive governments against their citizens. Who didn't know that, by the way? Whole book of Judges, it's all it's about. People basically saying F off to oppressive governments. The whole book of Judges. You can see why you can see why they don't like you reading the Bible. Basically, it's a lot of empowerment if you understand the book. A lot of empowerment if you actually read it. not what you've been taught and what the church teaches you. It's a very empowering book. A lot of the Old Testament is about people saying F off to oppressive taxes and yay to tithing or contribution. So it's worth considering that. But in a morally correct society, we contribute because we want to contribute to the better good. But as soon as we're getting pillaged and plundered, it's called tribute. Call it for what it is. It's not taxes anymore. This is what Packer is alluding to. And Larry Bates made this comment in 2007. He said, there's going to be a crash eventually. It's going to be horrific. The whole economic system is going to fall apart. And I remember years ago doing this presentation at the Hyatt Hotel, and afterwards I had someone approach me. And all I will say is that they said to me that one of the top international bankers happened to be, he was very close friends with him in the whole world, happened to be visiting him on a family matter, and he came along with him to hear me speak. And his basic word was, how the heck does this guy know all this stuff? He said, we know this is coming. We're just putting it off as long as we can. That was his exact words, but we know this is heading. So this is going to happen. This is going to happen, and you want to be prepared for it. Regan, basically, of the Australian Taxpayers Association, sorry, that was the thing which I forgot to mention. That was his quote about that, and that was what they worked out. Because the fact is, in economic upheaval, though, this is exciting news. Wealth isn't destroyed, it's transferred. And if you're willing to be one of the action takers today, or just generally, and doing what is difficult while it's easy, you're going to be one of the people who's going to benefit greatly, and you're going to be able to come through and be part of the new rich, because that's basically what lies before you. And again, I'll take you back to what I said at the start. Plan for what is difficult while it's easy, and plan for what is great while you still can. So there's a lot that can be done. And so these are just some examples or whatever else. The system entirely favours the rich. What's very fascinating was in 1915, when they brought in income tax for corporations in America and Australia, guess what the marketing pitch was? It says, we're only going to tax the corporations, the individuals will be left alone. I'm quoting Kiyosaki, by the way, on that. That's not a Warren Black makeup out of his ass. Robert Kiyosaki said that this is what he discovered from his research. As we know, the corporations are the ones who don't pay tax, and the individuals actually do. So again, I'm not talking about being willing to pay a legitimate contribution. Just realise you're in a system of slavery, and you want to seriously question if that's how you want to live your existence on Earth in the short time that we live here, or whether you want to become a free man or woman and live a life of meaning where you enjoy your life. That's what you want to ask yourself, and not let yourself be enslaved in a system which is fast heading that way into a universal grid. And many small business owners and investors in Australia even previously felt like they were carrying a backpack 10 kilograms while trying to play a game of AFL. How much more now? I went out yesterday for lunch with my son. Chicken burger for him, some zucchini and corn fritters with some salad for me, a cup of coffee and a juice. Cost $70. $70. I'm like, what the bleeding heck? $70. Now, yeah, I make money, so I'm okay. How do most people survive today? The reality is most people aren't. They're just building up debt. That's what it shows. And eventually the piper will have to be paid. So the really good thing is that the super wealthy know this. They know that the more money you make, the less tax you pay, because you can pay people to help you get your taxes down like Packer would do, and like Trump does, and like others do. They realise it's optional. They realise that the more money you make, the more sovereign you get, the more free you get in your thinking, the less you're going to pay, and the easier life gets. And whereas a slave basically goes, no, I just got to not make too much because then I've got to pay more, and I've got to do this, got to pay my mortgage. So the question is, are you a slave or are you a free man or woman? And a little bit of a tip for you, which probably none of you have heard before. The Magna Carta, but many here is one of the great documents of freedom. If you actually read the Magna Carta, it didn't apply to the peasants. It applied to the free men and women of the day, the barons and the lords. It was to stop the government pillaging them. Who didn't know that? Just type in me if you didn't know that. It was never for pheasants. It wasn't a universal document. It was only for the free, the Magna Carta. Yeah, most people don't know this. It was never for the normal citizen. That's why when people go around quoting the Magna Carta, I'm like, good luck to you. It was for free people. It was to say to King John, if you want to go and pillage the peasants, that's fine because they're slaves working under your system, but you can't pillage the free people. You gotta stay within the rules. So you want to become a free man or woman, because the moment you're slave, guess what? You're pillage material. Who here wants to be unpillaged today? Anyone? Or are you happy to be slaves? Doesn't appear like many want to be slaves, do you? So one of the reasons I like working with Trent, by the way, Trent is a legend, and I said that to him. I said to Trent, you're really a great guy, and everyone likes you. When I'm my true self, I'm a little bit of an arsehole. That was why I was a good lawyer. So I'm a little bit more direct. You'll find when you deal with Trent, for those of you who book and have a call, which I'll offer later, it's much nicer than me, great to deal with, okay? Much better. So Peter Martin, in his investigation in the Sydney Morning Herald in 2016 in April, examined the tax affairs of the 56 richest Australians and found that only 2 paid any tax whatsoever, and every single one of them were legal. So pretty much it's knowing, again, I'm not saying to go out and do all that sort of stuff. I'm just saying that you want to realize that the more money you make and the more you're willing to go and look at alternatives like becoming a digital nomad, a free individual, you don't have to be part of that, and restructure your affairs 100% legally. I never recommend doing anything stupid. Not, life is too short to do things stupid. If you're a slave and there's no way out of it, best off just to be one and be happy with it, okay? And just accept it and find a way to find meaning in it. What I'm talking today is for those who are ready to really start working on sovereignty, because income taxes, when you study the foundation, comes from Marxism. It's designed to take your money. It's designed to bring it back into the system, and now especially that Albo has got the Generation Zers and the millennials going, come on, take the money. Communism is the way of Australia's future. That's where it's heading right now. And one of the reasons why I also do consciousness work on the side and do that with Trent, because the one hope we see that we might be able to ameliorate what's happening is to get a raising in consciousness and moral fibre and strength for people to push back. But for now, this is what we've got to deal with. So for now, you want to be structuring your affairs and finding a way, know where you're at, and starting the journey to really get yourself out of it. And that will also mean investing in yourself, paying money, and rather than putting your money into, watching movies depressed, going on a holiday to kind of avoid it, you're better off to invest the money in restructuring your affairs, learning how to become sovereign, working and getting some help, And that's one thing at Global Wealth Club we can do. If you aren't already working with us, invest, get some help and work with us. Or if you don't like us and think I'm speaking a crock of annoying stuff, then someone else. But you'll know what I'm saying. It's investing in that to really move forward. So this is why we do that, because the rich know this. You want to move away from the sole traders and partnerships, and we're sharing more about that next week to make sure that you don't pay any tax that you don't legally have to. Even this week, Albo and his merry men are talking about a cash flow tax on companies. I don't know if anyone's heard of this, but a net cash flow. But they'll cut the company tax rate to 20%, but whatever your net cash flow is in your business, 5% tax will be on it. So on top of the company tax rate, that's what they're talking about at the moment. It's a new thing. The Financial Review is having a fit. They're talking about death duties. They're talking about negative gearing. I don't have the slightest doubt that negative gearing will be limited in the next few years. I'll be surprised if it's not, because the voters are screaming for it. And if it's not, rest assured that the next election, the party that promises to limit negative gearing and increase taxes on some level will basically get into office. So this is where it's heading. And you've heard ahead of time, everyone. Before COVID, I was warning people what was coming. Most people thought I was extreme, so I'm warning you now. And right now, you've still got time to prepare, to plan, and to get yourself ready for it, okay? So there's so many different ways at using structures. You can at least start the process of making it a little bit better, okay? It's not perfect. It's still in the Australian system, but it's better than doing absolutely nothing at all. So it's better to be doing something than doing nothing. And I'm sure you would agree with that. So really, this is the whole idea, to move forward and do something about your situation moving forward. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. So basically, companies, for example, it at least gives you some protection, better than having no protection at all. So, and as Tony says, yeah, remove negative gearing, the average Australian will pay more. We all know this stuff. All it's going to do is give more money to the government and less to the individual. That's all it's going to do. But this is not how people see it, because it's easier for bullies to pick on the easy than it is to pick on the hard. And for most younger people, picking on the government is too hard because the government have got resources, they've got strength, they've got power, they've got media persuasion. So you go down to the people you can pick on, which is the wealthier Australians and things like that. That's why a lot of the middle class small business will be wiped out in the next few years, and something which we have alluded to over the last 10 years. In 2015, we warned this to people. Already, most of the wealthy, by the way, have taken action. Everything I'm saying is already done by most wealthy. Almost anyone you hear who's got a decent amount of money has done what I'm saying by now. This is kind of like a last call, so to speak, to get on the train to start seeing if you can basically structure your affairs and not be part of the New World Order train. So in other words, it's coming to that station where you've either got to stay on the train to go into globalism or get off the train and at least go somewhere different. And as you'll see shortly, you don't have to run away from Australia. I've got some good news for you. I'm going to be encouraging and show you a pathway through this. There's all kinds of different stuff and ways, which we got used to now, but it's straight out plunder. Let's face it, it's plunder. It says this: as soon as you start taking way beyond your legal entitlement, call it what it is. He says in his book, The Law, it's plunder. It's not taxes, it's plunder. You pass a law like they did the law of prima nocta 700 years ago, which gave the king's soldiers first right to the virgins on their wedding night. Call it what it is, it's rape. It's not a law, it's rape. And likewise, this is plunder when you start to go down this path. And the reality is, sometimes if you don't have the strength or structures or way to deal with it, because sometimes you have to put up with it. The good news is there are things you can do right now to deal something about it. That's the good thing about it. And even trust. Right now, trusts still work very well. And despite the efforts of governments to change the laws on that, they haven't had much success because most politicians, most farmers use them. So trusts give you a lot of asset protection. They give you some rights to income splitting. And even the ATO crackdown, it's still only limited to certain things because by and large, you can still generally pay less taxes with a trust than you'll pay individually if you run a business or do investing. So if nothing else, at least make sure you got trust, company trusts, and you're using them, if nothing else. And next week, we'll talk about that and about super and what the challenges that lie ahead and how you can still use it. So like I said, today is designed to give a bit of an overview. I'm just keeping an eye on time. Charitable religions or foundations is another one. A lot of the super wealthy use this, and more Australians use it because foundations allow you to do philanthropy and you get significant tax benefits. I've got a foundation right now, for example, that has $10,000 a month, free grants from Google, as an example, free advertising. You get certain tax exemptions for most of them within limits. So there's as well as very good asset protection. Before we take questions and then get Trent to come on and just share about, just introduce you to him and about how you can take action, what are your options? I'm going to show you the 4 ways you can handle this, okay? So you can work out which category you belong to. Category 1 is basically do the Netflix, be the Netflix dude or do this. In other words, just hope, basically just go, you know what? I'm just going to smoke weed, drink some booze, go down the pub, watch Netflix and just hope the heck it goes away and Jesus just turns up and gets rid of it, okay? And the reality is most Australians will do this. Even some of you will. You say you won't, but you will. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot of work and a lot of mental attention you've got to pay to change and restructure your affairs and take action. It takes commitment. It takes sacrifice, especially when you've been living a certain path and going a certain way. So some will choose to do nothing, hoping that they reverse themselves. And again, for some people, they consciously do it. They say, you know what? I don't mind my money being lost. Life is short anyway. I'm just going to enjoy my life. So you just don't do anything at all. You just leave it and hope that I'm wrong. And who knows? Maybe I will be. I hope I am. I actually hope I'm wrong. Option 2, which if nothing else, I hope everyone at least does option 2. Option 2 means you stay put and restructure. In other words, you just make sure you're as best structured as you can. In other words, you say, Warren, Trent, we're just not going to go offshore, not now, or set up offshore. We don't even want to think about that right now. We don't even want to think about anything major, but we are at least willing to look at, can we improve our current business structuring? Can we improve our investment? Can we make our life a little bit better than it is now? Hopefully, at least all of you or most of you will at least agree with me to do an option 2, things like that. So Marcus says a really good comment. So I'm going to comment. Normally I don't break up a flow. He says, can't believe you've done the whole concept of being theft on this first one. Very impressed. We're very aligned. Yeah, look, it's just not time, Marcus, to kind of mess around. I think, look, I don't have a problem with legitimate taxes in a form of contribution. I'm talking about when you start just making shit up to move money to centralised government. I mean, call it what it is. It's plunder. I mean, if the mafia put a gun at my head and told me they'd shoot me if I don't do something, I probably would do it. But I'm not going to sit there and say it's okay. The fact is they're coercing me, So option 3 is to create your safety net. So option 3, you say, look, I've already got my structures done up at some level. I want a second plan B I can pull in insurance. I'm staying put in Australia. I'm going to live here. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to eat my food. I'm going to go forward, see how we go. But I'm basically going to accept the reality that I need some kind of protection now. I need a bit of a plan B. I need to have something ready to pull at a moment's notice. I don't have to run and panic and flee. 2018, I was in Panama, seeing people flee Venezuela when it collapsed in 2018, firsthand, everywhere, running to get jobs, to make money, to provide for their family, because inflation collapse had destroyed the country. Every chance we're going to head that way, the way we're going. So basically, rather than fleeing, at least going, you know what, if I've got some money offshore, not to evade tax illegally, but so that I'm actually protecting my wealth. If I've at least set myself up that I've got some wealth offshore, I've got some bank accounts offshore, it just means if Australia goes nuts and I can't access any of my stuff anymore because of AI, I've got something overseas, or I've got a pathway out of this. I had clients execute their plan B in COVID and just say, I'm getting out of here. For me, that's why I'm doing a lot of stuff around Bali to get myself ready for my plan B in there. So I like Bali, it's close to me, happy to live there. That's just my choice. So option 3 is to do that. Option 4 is that you become a global citizen and just live a free life and go, you know what? The world is a great place. I go to Bali and I can just get on a motorbike, pay $10 a day and drive it around. Here I have to get a 6-month learner's permit, wait forever, go through ridiculous rigmarole and then get it. There's just so many little things. I hear if I'm driving, there's cameras everywhere, taking photographs right up close to me if I'm on my phone. I'm sure in a year or 2 from now, if there's a Nazi symbol they have to see in my car, I'll be getting a please explain or prosecution notice. Then, whereas I don't get any of that overseas in most countries now. Yes, look, to some degree it's happening there, but there's a lot more freedom, especially as you know. And we'll be sharing about this more in the 3rd class. So anyway, like I said, there's a way through it. It doesn't matter where you're at, just make a move. If you're there right now, move to here. If you're here right now and you've already strengthened it, move to here. If you're here right now, you may be happy to stay here or move towards that. I'm going to open this up for questions. Any questions before we get Trent on and do that? Any questions before we jump in? I started 5 minutes late, so I can go back. Mid-50s, super, with property, crypto, and precious metals, own our home, combined salary, what do we do next? Good question. I would be looking at working at where you're at. You probably sound like you're either in a 1 or 2. If you're in a 1, you would at least want to make sure that you're number 2, which means you're structured the best way you can to protect your wealth. That would be my suggestions. If you're already well structured, you may want to look at number 3, which means setting up a plan B overseas. Rebecca, what are your thoughts of moving to the US? US is like having a whole lot of different countries in one. US is doing a lot of stuff around tax minimization and things like that and making the world better. A lot of my people I know moved to Florida. Florida is a real land of the free. DeSantis is a total libertarian. So that's one option as well. The truth is, it's like buying a car. There's many places you can move to where it'll be easier for you. It's just a case, a bit like buying a car, which one fits your lifestyle and desire. And parts of the US definitely fall within that. How easy is it to get offshore accounts set up? Well, it's easy and it's not easy. It can be done, but you generally, it's harder now with the KYC rules, but of course the contacts we use can help people do it legally without much problem. So, yeah. Rebecca looking at Florida. Yeah, look, many people have done it. So it can be done. You just got to have experts knowing how to do it. So any other comments or questions? How much do you use n-legis person's understandings to trade between legal and lawful? Yeah, look, I think like anything, I say Marcus like Neo and Morpheus is how I see it. Just because you know how to be out of the matrix doesn't mean sometimes you don't have to go in it. So I don't work so much on trying to be completely living in Zion like Neo and Morpheus. I want to actually participate in the matrix. It's learning how to be outside of it, be in it. So I do interplay legal and lawful, but I learn to work within the system. Sally, is it hard to change from a sole trader to a company? Not at all. Not at all. And that would be a good start. That's an option 1 to option 2. So that's a good one. Considering Bali as well, I've invested in property there. I'm certainly looking at it right now. And in fact, I'm in the process of an amazing purchase right now with some people are going to be teaming up with me to buy in because I can get a discounted price. So I'll be letting people know about that who might be interested, not for profit, but I'm not doing it for that so much, but things like that. Cost to set all this up will be, look, best to have a consult to go through costs because it entirely depends. It's like buying a car. It comes down to what you need. It can be anything from hardly anything up to a whole lot. So a bit like buying a car. Unrealized tax gains, that's going to be covered in subsequent weeks. How do I get hold of you? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through and get Trent to jump on with me because the next step is going to be to do a free consult. And what I want to do is introduce you to my partner in crime, Mr. Trent Chapman, who has been a great addition to my life over the last few years and is a good friend of mine and a lot of fun. And like I said, he's a nicer version of me. So Trent, maybe just share a bit more about the consult. And it is going to be free, by the way. Trent's happy to have a free chat with everyone and you're getting someone who knows what they're doing. Trent, just introduce yourself and share a bit more.
Yeah, thanks, Woz. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name's Trent Chapman, which I'm sure you can see on the screen. I'll just want to go over a couple of things that you've mentioned there, Woz, and just to sort of bring, I work in the same space as what Warren does. And there's a couple of things that Warren said tonight, which have even just been friendly reminders for myself as well. I know myself in the last 12 months just how many things have changed, and it can be really difficult, to stay up to scratch with everything. So first and foremost, I think this is an incredible series that you've put together, Warren. I think it's much needed. It's one of those things where you think you might have things sorted, but the goalposts are always moving. I mean, we know that we've got cryptos now. We know there's a bunch of new laws. So it's really important to ensure that you stay on top of it. I guess probably what one of my biggest strengths has always been is around about having the who. I'm all about the who. It's all around about your network and knowing that you've got the right people because it can be really difficult to stay on top of all of this, right? Especially when you're trying to manage your life, you've got a career, you may have a family, whatever else it may be. So it's super important to ensure that you've got the who around. So I would absolutely first and foremost encourage everybody to be sure to jump onto these next 4 parts with Warren. I guarantee that you'll take a lot away. And I think it's a really good time at the moment. And this is really why I've offered my assistance. For people that know me, know that I'm just a good guy that likes to help people. I really don't go much on bullying in any way, shape, or form, but it's more the other side for me. I'm all about empowerment. So I spend most of my time focusing on empowering people so they can go and live a life of purpose, and not have to worry about things, and they can sleep easy at night. So what I've done with Warren and the Global Wealth Club is I've made myself available at absolutely no charge. I would normally charge $497 for a 60-minute conversation with myself, but there's no charge whatsoever. And how I'm treating this is my giving back to Australians is really what it's all about. Because I'm aware that it's hard. I'm aware that some of the language, even many people that have watched tonight might actually think, oh, geez, this is a bit confusing. Geez, I don't really know what Warren means. I've got a good ability to take what Warren says and put it into layman's terms so everybody can ensure that they actually understand it. So the reason why I've made myself available, and I'm not available all day, every day, but Thursdays and Fridays, I've made myself available for the next 5 or 6 weeks for free consults, is the way I look at it, it's like a health check. So it's not really a consult, it's more like a health check. Let's have a look at what you've got. I can see from all the comments people just wrote in the last couple of minutes that there's a lot of noise, there's a lot there, So think of a consultation with myself as like a health check. I'll have a look at what you've got. I'll be able to share with you where your opportunities are. I'll also be able to share with you very quickly where your cracks are and what you need to tighten up. But if there's nothing there, then there's nothing there. If you're all over it, then you're all over it. And I'll be very direct and very honest with you. Even for myself, I'm structured very well. I've had to restructure a few things again just recently because, again, those goalposts do move. And one of those big things for myself was just to ensure that I had digital assets in my trust, because some of my trusts were quite old that didn't have any digital assets, which could have caused a lot of grief. So I'm making myself available. I'll let Warren explain to you exactly how that's going to work, how you can book in. But the one thing that I am very much about too, guys, is that I want to help people that want to be helped. I don't want people just to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time either. If you're somebody that really wants to make change, and I'm a pretty, I never really, I don't live by fear. I'm very much a man of faith. But one thing that I will say is that that window is like minutely small right now. Like it is really minutely small to take action. And now is the time that you've got to take action. I had a new cleaner come today to the house and had a chat with him. And one of the things I'd seen somebody made a comment about this before was he was a sole trader and he's a top guy, just had 2 kids. And it like literally broke my heart to watch this bloke, sole trader, cleaning people's houses, looking after his family. And obviously I know about a sole trader and you really don't want to be a sole trader. I can tell you right now, it's probably the last thing that you want to be is a sole trader. So I'm here to be able to offer solutions, to be able to give you my advice, to be able to give you my input, to give you some theories, to give you some strategies. You can take it or you can leave it in any way, shape or form, but please, just for those people that want to take action, and one thing that I have conversations with all the time when people approach me for some advice, the first thing I usually say is like, well, who's your accountant? Who are you working with? And most people are like, oh, geez, don't really have a very good accountant. And that's always a big concern for me. It's like the person that's managing your books or taking over, if you haven't got a good relationship there, first and foremost, that's a problem. But also remember that, your accountants are working for the ATO, same like a lot of your financial planners, right? So this is why I think Warren's knowledge and wisdom and obviously expertise is, you can't compare in any way, shape or form. I'm very selective around about who I associate myself with, but I have no dramas in standing next to Warren because he absolutely is the best in the game with this. But if you would like to have a bit of a health check, bit of a chat, I'm here. I'll be here for the next 5 or 6 weeks to take those calls. And yeah, please share anything that you've got, bring it to the table. I will just quickly share a couple little success stories of people in my personal network in the last year. Something as simple as like self-managed super fund. I've literally witnessed and watched people turn $200,000 in super to like 1.6 million in the last 12 months, since November last year, quite a couple of people. I've watched people now have more empowerment because they understand how to operate, how to operate through trust. I think anyone that doesn't have a trust is a goose. And I don't mean that in an offensive way, but if you're not operating from a trust and you're operating from what you would call your strawman, from your Mr. Trent Chapman, you want to get away from that as much as you can and use your strategies. Because when you do, you start to realize you've got 30, 40% more money, but it's not just the money, right? It's the empowerment. It's like, what can you do with that now? How many more opportunities can you open up? How much more love can that come into your family? How much more can that create for other people as well as yourself? And I've got quite an extensive history with consciousness, but more so before that around about mental health. And I know for a fact that the number one thing that causes mental health challenges is finances. And I also am very much aware that it's a bit like pull your hair out. It can be confusing, it can be overwhelming. I pride myself on when I talk to people in around about making it easy and understandable. And I will ensure that you'll be directed in the right place with the right people for whatever it is that you may need. So all from me for tonight, guys, is just, thank you for being here tonight and jumping on Warren's webinar. Thank you for being responsible first and foremost. Thank you for wanting to be a part of the Great Awakening. As Warren said at the start, it's either you're going to awaken and you're going to take some action or you will. And I don't say that with fear. Again, I'm not a fear person, but Australia's in times that we haven't really seen. And I recently have just come back. I was in Asia for a couple of weeks. I was in the Middle East for a few weeks, went over to Europe for a month to have a look at what's going on out in the rest of the world. And I can tell you right now, we think that things are tough in Australia, and yeah, they absolutely are. But a lot of the things that are looking to be implemented here right now have already been implemented in other parts of the world. And I've seen the way that the behaviors that people have gone through that. I see people living in, accommodation where there's two, even 3 families in accommodation. So please, if you think that I can be of assistance, obviously go straight to Warren if you think Warren's great. But if you just want to have a bit of a health check with myself, I will gladly and I will happily support any Australian that wants to do better and help you kind of find a way to empowerment and secure your wealth and ensure that you can get back with living life and, not have the head noise and make sure that you sleep easy at night. So that's all from me, So if you want to let the guys know in any which way, shape or form how they can book, then I'll be happy to have a chat with anyone who comes through.
100%. Thank you, Trent. Yes, some people were noticing how we had a glitch happening and it was working literally. It's been one of those days. It was working an hour ago exactly. So I've just put a direct link to book into the chat with Trent, okay? So if the one that I've given you doesn't working, it's in the chat. So is everyone getting that one? And it definitely works. I will click on it right now myself and you will see it come up. So there you go. This is the link for Trent's calendar. So it's available right now. Has everyone got that one? It's working. Fantastic, everyone. Okay, Trent, thank you so much for making yourself available like this. This is like, I mean, believe you me, everyone, this is a privilege. This guy is a gun. Like he's learned a lot working with me. I've learned working with him. He just actioned everything I've ever taught him. In fact, he's a little bit, in fact, he's extreme in a good way. There's nothing Trent hasn't virtually implemented what I've told him. I think there's only one remaining one, and I'm sure it'll be done in the next month, knowing Trent. This guy lives what he preaches, everyone. So the fact that he's giving you a chat, you don't want to miss that opportunity. So people are asking, is it better to wait till further into the series or book now? I strongly suggest you book now. Yes, it'll be available after other sessions, but here's the big but. Telling you his calendar is going to book out pretty quick because he's only making himself available for limited time because Trent does other stuff other than work with me. As much as I'd love him to be full-time with me and living in my shadow, he's got his own sovereignty. He's a lion who has his own part of the jungle. So I've given you the direct link. It does work for people who are saying that. I know the other one's not, but here's a direct link in the chat. And I've just clicked on it there. So if you click in the actual one there, it will work perfectly. So, perfect, everyone. And thank you very much, everyone. One of the last ones I just want to quickly show you as we finish off is something for you to think about. The Holy Bible says this, and this was one of the ones I used to teach years ago in my seminars. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, the Bible is a little bit of a blunt book, and that's why people don't like it. Because you've rejected knowledge, I will reject you. You will be no priest to me. In other words, because you've ignored the moral law and you will pay the price. As you've forgotten the law of your God, I will forget your children. And this is what we're facing today. Years ago, people were warned and didn't listen, and now the children are suffering. Don't be the generation that lets the next group of children suffer. So let's take action, everyone. Let's do something about it. And thank you for your great feedback. And thank you once again, Trent, for being here. And
you're welcome.
Okay, we'll see you all next week, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. Don't miss it. And we'll see you then. Bye for now.